Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
We hope you enjoy listening to this podcast of St. Louis on the Air, brought to you by University College at Washington University, with undergraduate and graduate programs part-time, evening, and online. University College at Washington University, offering world-class education within reach.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. The August 7th Democratic primary in the St. Louis County Executive's race has been anything but quiet. Incumbent Steve Stenger has a well-financed challenger in a campaign that has been called raucous and vitriolic. His opponent is Mark Mantovani, a successful businessman who was a political newcomer. Along with St. Louis political reporter Joe Manis, Mark Mantovani joins me in studio. Great to have you with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
And nice to meet you. Well, this campaign has been called raucous and vitriolic. How well served is the voting public by a campaign like that?
Well, frankly, I'd prefer a campaign that focused on issues exclusively, to tell you the truth. I, not having been in politics my whole life, don't particularly enjoy the negative discussion of one's opponent and the like. I think if anybody's looked at this campaign fairly, they would have to acknowledge that there's been more attacks of me than the other way around. But be that as it may, the political consultants tell me that the public always complains about negative ads, and negative ads continue to be effective. And so, at the end of the day, I think the voters will, not in this election, but generally speaking, we'll have to decide if they start punishing people who run negative ads or not. But I don't enjoy it. It is unpleasant, and I think a waste of time and money. But it is influential relative to outcomes.
And yet I think you used the word malevolent when describing your opponent at one time. It's pretty tough.
Well, I did, but as a practical matter, I think I used that term when referring to the fact that historically in this community, we've had county executives who have been benevolent. The structure of the county charter, so far as the government operation is concerned, gives a high degree of authority to the county executive. More recently, the county council has had to strike back, or felt like striking back, against some of the authoritative moves that this county executive has made in reaction, in my view, to moves that were confrontational and antagonistic and kind of showed a lack of cooperation. And that's really the derivation of the term malevolent in that context.
Mm-hmm. Well, how does Mark Mantovani change all of that, particularly relations with the council?
Yeah, well, I don't worry about this a bit. First of all, I've got good relationships with a number of the council people. 3 of the 4 Democrats on the county council have endorsed my candidacy. I'm familiar with a number of the other members of the council. But beyond just those individual relationships, my history as a leader is one that has always been built on collaboration, communication, transparency, really. And so I don't anticipate having any kind of significant antagonism. We may not always agree, but I don't treat people disrespectfully. I'm not dictatorial. I try to reason with people in order to get something accomplished.
A part of your history also includes support for our former governor, Eric Greitens, and much is being made of that. I think you're on record as having said that was a mistake. Well, how do you assure voters that you don't make that kind of a mistake when it comes to dealing with appointees and what have you in the future?
Yeah, well, if there's anybody who's running for this office who hasn't made a mistake, they would get my support. So as a practical matter, we're all human beings, and to the best of my knowledge, only one person didn't make a mistake, and he's not on the ballot. So there is that. How do I assure people? Well, first of all, I've acknowledged that I was seeking a transformative leader for our state. In my opinion, the state of Missouri has languished for decades. It feels to me like we're 40th or 41st in about everything. And I believed that Eric Greitens had the potential to be a transformative leader. His resume suggested as much.
So did a lot of people, obviously.
Yeah, of course. I made this mistake with 1,400,000 others. But practically speaking, I was very attracted to not so much his military career, but to his Rhodes Scholar designation, the fact that he'd been a New York Times bestselling author, that he had done humanitarian work with Mother Teresa and had formed the Mission Continues. I was impressed by that stuff. And I attributed his move to the right over the years that I followed him to the fact that he's running for governor in a red state, and kind of political reality indicated that he had to move more and more to the right. Where I really jumped off the bandwagon was after he won election, and he continued to move to the right, which was inexplicable to me. When he started cutting education funding, I was totally off the bandwagon because, again, this is one of the things in the state of Missouri that we should be investing in at a higher level, not at a lower level.
Joe, go ahead. I'm sure you have a couple of questions for him.
Yeah, I got several. Okay. Now, in the case of the $20,000 to Greitens, there's also the fact that you've given money to other Republicans, either running for president or whatever. Now, you also have pointed out that you gave money to Hillary Clinton when she ran for president. I guess the thing is, I've been getting emails from people who say, how do we know for sure this guy is a Democrat? I mean, forgetting the accusations and the ads, but still, the money does talk.
Yeah, well, first of all, if you look at my campaign contribution history, there are many times more contributions to Democrats than Republicans. We have a tendency to identify 2 or 3 contributions to Republicans instead of the 25 or 30 to Democrats over the course of my career. And again, that's fine. I made those things. Obviously, people who don't know me have this question. If you look at the way this campaign has developed, 5 of the 7 Democratic townships in St. Louis County who have looked at both Steve Stenger and myself have endorsed me. That's 5 of 7 Democratic townships. 3 of the 4 Democratic council people have endorsed me, not Steve Stenger. I think my Democratic credentials by people who have gotten to know me and who have listened to me are much more solid than my opponents. And that is certainly reflected in the nature of the endorsements coming from the Democratic Party. The Democratic township organizations up in North County, the Fannie Lou Hamer organization, the Missouri Progressive Action Group, all of these have endorsed me. And so I think you have to look at my policies, what I've suggested, what my views are, in order to get a fair reading of those things.
Now, one of the biggest questions about you has been the fact that this is your first bid for public office. We were just talking about former Governor Eric Greitens. That was his first bid for public office, and it didn't turn out well. And some would say that his biggest problem was that he didn't really know how state government worked. We've got a president who is a businessman who'd never run for public office, and there's differences of opinion on whether or not he's successful. So my question to you, because I'm hearing this from people who've asked me, they're like, how do we know that this guy would know how to run county government, especially since the county executive does have a lot of power? The county executive has more power than the mayor in the city of St. Louis. So how would you, because since you haven't been in county government, or even as a councilman, I mean, how would you deal with what you don't know?
Well, here's the deal. You've got, first of all, we have 2 candidates, okay? So we have to compare the levels of experience of the 2 candidates that are in this election. In my case, I have run an organization with hundreds and hundreds of employees. To the best of my knowledge, before Steve Stenger became county executive, he had never run an organization of more than 10. My ability to deal with people from all different parts of the community, I think, is superior by virtue of that experience. In addition, because Trump and Greitens are fresh in our mind, we have a tendency to think that people who are new to politics may not be successful. There are cases on both sides of that outcome. If you ask the people in New York City what kind of mayor Michael Bloomberg was, with no political experience prior to his assuming the mayorship, they'll tell you he was outstanding. Even people who don't necessarily agree with all of his positions as an administrator, he was effective. The mayor today of Louisville, by the way, is ascending on a daily basis, is a guy named Greg Fisher, who was an entrepreneur, as I was, before he entered public service. I think what we have to do is we have to look at the people, all right, and identify whether they seem to have a command of the issues, whether they seem to be doing this for the right reasons. The other thing that I would add, and academics don't necessarily mean anything, but with respect to understanding the way government works, I spent a year at the Harvard Kennedy School of Business in 2016 focused on state and local government issues, which, by the way, President Trump never did. And I don't believe Eric Greitens ever did. Mm-hmm. And so I think I came away with a much better handle on the distinctions between running a government and running a business than they did. These are very different functions, very different functions. At their core, however, they both have an important aspect of leadership. The first thing we need in this community, and I've heard this for decades, the first thing we need in this community is some leadership. Leadership requires people with the right attitudes, people who accept responsibilities, people who can communicate, people who express a vision. That is, in my view, what this community needs more than anything. And I think if you've listened to me and you listen to the incumbent or watch his performance over the last 4 years, you'll come to the right answer.
We have a tweet here from Kyle who writes, "Why would Mark think Greitens was only moving to the right for show? He told us he would pass right to work and do other very conservative things. How can I trust that you don't want those things like right to work?"
Well, first of all, because I'm telling you I don't want right to work. I've spoken about this issue 100 times. Right to work at this point in our economic history is exactly the wrong position. Our middle class is being decimated. Why we would emaciate the power of labor unions at a point in time when we are polarized relative to economic disparity is beyond me. What we need to do is we need to empower people to have higher wages, and that is exactly the opposite of what the right to work movement is all about. I think the decline of the middle class is one of the preeminent issues of our time, and so consequently, I don't think that right to work is appropriate. Now, with respect to Greitens and that particular issue, I think it's important to recognize two things about that election. First of all, Greitens was a Republican who had previously been a Democrat. He was running against a Democrat who had previously run as a Republican. Both of these guys had confused pasts relative to where they came from. When I first met Eric Greitens, he had been recruited by Barack Obama to run for Congress. His history was that he was moving from left to moderate to right. And where somebody got on the bandwagon, I think, colors that a little bit. But as a practical matter, both of those people were engaged in some kind of a transition relative to their views. And the other thing that I want to say about this is, I believe that people who have the confidence to evolve in their thinking should be commended for that. The fact is that I don't think the same way about every issue that I did 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I'm on a journey in my life to try to help other people. And as I've evolved over these years, some of my views have changed. If that makes me unqualified to serve, then find somebody who still thinks the way they did as a 20-year-old and put them in office, because that's not me.
What ideas would you bring to that office that you would consider fresh and new for the people of the county?
Well, that's a long question. There are a lot of them. First of all, the office is today underutilized. The office has tremendous potential in terms of using it as a bully pulpit to challenge this community to change. There are social issues and educational issues that are outside the mainstream of the pure authority of the county executive that I believe that position allows one to convene the best thinking around the community on. That's something that I don't think is being done today. The job is used today in a very tactical, transactional kind of basis. Hey, let's build something, instead of dealing with the fundamental policy challenges that are affecting this community. Things like the fact that 35% of African American kids in St. Louis County live in poverty. Many, many people in St. Louis County don't know that. 35% of African American kids in St. Louis County live below the poverty line. That, to me, is wholly unacceptable. And frankly, I don't hear the county executive talking about it very much. Our rate of economic mobility in this region is slow. Our job growth rate is slow. And I don't hear anybody challenging this community to change. Fact is, if you guys think, if your listeners think that everything is going well in this community, they shouldn't vote for me, because I don't. I think we are being left behind. And I think we need leadership that challenges this community to change in order to compete more effectively. I also, Don, specifically with respect to fresh ideas, I think we've got to deal with the fundamental fragmentation along our government structure, local government structure in this community. The county executive's had 4 years in office, and he has not taken a position on this issue. 4 years ago, he said he wanted to study it. He's still studying it. People have gotten PhDs in that period of time. He's still studying this issue. I don't think it's studying. I think it's dodging. I've taken a firm position on this issue. I think we've got to create change in order to put the community in a position to compete with our real competition, which is places like Nashville and Kansas City and Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So are you talking about the elephant in the room here is, are you talking about some sort of merger between the city and county, or a lot of these others? There's 88 small municipalities in St. Louis County.
Our fragmentation is a two-headed monster. It is a function of the fact that the city and county are divided, and then we have a multiplicity of municipalities. I think that we have to recognize that economic opportunity in America today is awarded by region. When Amazon went looking for a place to locate a second headquarters, it looked at regions and compared them on the basis of job or workforce and infrastructure and transportation and transit and the like. Regions are where the economic game is played today. Our regional collaboration is grossly ineffective. I don't believe that the city and county should merge. I do believe that the city should re-enter St. Louis County as the 89th city in St. Louis County so that the county council can become a legislative forum to create policy across the region. The fact that we don't have a soccer team in St. Louis today, and soccer isn't the issue, it's illustrative of the fact that we failed to work together, is a direct consequence of the fact that the city and county failed to work together. So I believe that the city should rejoin the county. That doesn't mean the county assumes any debts from the city. The county doesn't underwrite the debts of any of the cities that are part of St. Louis County. If the city were to rejoin St. Louis County, it would retain its mayor, its board of aldermen, its own bond rating, its own fiscal integrity. But we could make policy together. We could compete against other communities across the nation together. And that's a sea change, in my opinion. And this can only happen if the county executive and the mayor appoint a board of electors and they formulate a plan and we take it to the voters. The voters would decide. This doesn't get rammed down anybody's throat. It is decided by the voters in the city and the county. I think we can do this in a couple or 3 years. And I hasten to add two things. First of all, every major city in America except Baltimore and St. Louis is already in a county. This is not revolutionary stuff. Chicago's in Cook County. LA's in LA County, right? The only cities that are not associated with the county are St. Louis and Baltimore, and we're both struggling. So I don't think this is particularly revolutionary, and I think we can make this happen. And lastly, every community that has come together on a regional basis in the last 25 years has launched a period of economic expansion that dwarfed anything they did before. Indianapolis came together, and they've blown by us. Louisville has come together, and they are catching us. Nashville came together, and they launched this economic expansion like nothing we've seen. If we come together, I am confident that we can launch a period of economic expansion that would put this place back on the map.
But bringing the city into the county as a municipality doesn't solve the fragmentation problem. We still got 88 municipalities to contend with. It
doesn't solve the municipality, the multiplicity of municipality issues. But here's the thing, Don. We didn't lose Amazon because Maplewood and Richmond Heights don't get along. We couldn't compete on the Amazon issue, but because our fundamental economic drivers in the region were disassociated. Okay, and if I'm county executive, this is going to strike people as perhaps kind of strange. We've got to develop a plan for every neighborhood in the county. I actually think there's a measure of strength associated with the fact that if I want to influence what's going on in Cool Valley or Pine Lawn, there's a municipal government there. There's a municipal official. There's a mayor that I can call on the phone and work with. I actually think it's harder to create planning and change in the parts of the county that are unincorporated. So I just don't think these are what's holding us back. And I know this. If we try to do too much, like make Kirkwood go away or Florissant go away, we'll get nothing done. What we have to do is we have to start by dealing with our fundamental challenge that is inhibiting our economic growth, and that's the city-county challenge.
Joe, you've got something else?
Yeah, I mean, one of the key things that the county executive does is they does oversee all of these departments that do run the county. And just using a couple examples, former county executive Charlie Dooley ran into problems when his administration proposed reducing the number of county parks and over trash, the whole trash district thing in South St. Louis County. Since you will be coming in as someone who has not held public office before, are there people who you're looking at who might help run it? Do you have visions on how to deal with that so you can focus on some of the broader vision issues that you want to? How would you do that part?
Well, this is what you do in business, isn't it? I mean, you build an organization of kind of the best and the brightest. Frankly, I'm not certain we've always applied that standard to a government service in this community. There have been those leaders who reached out beyond our borders and who were very demanding of the people who were leading departments and the like. This is very much my history. Look, I built a marketing company, which is the second largest independently owned marketing company in the U.S. today, and I never studied marketing, right? These are leadership challenges. And I think I'm uniquely qualified to do that. That's what CEOs, entrepreneurs do. And so, yes, I've identified people. I'm not going to tell you their names, but yes, I've identified people that I think would be terrific in terms of engaging with the county. Some of them, frankly, I haven't talked to about it yet, right? Because I think it'd be a little presumptuous for me to start talking about people I want to work for me when I don't have the job myself yet. But there are terrifically talented people here and elsewhere that we can get to lead departments and create change in this region.
We only have a little over a minute left. What can county government do to more suitably help the people in North County who are suffering from this contamination issue, the landfill contamination issue?
Yeah, well, so I'm so glad you brought that up. I don't get that question enough, frankly. This is
about a minute and a half to answer.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. I'm surprised you didn't ask me the meaning of life. This is a tragic scenario. I am, frankly, sort of amazed that there hasn't been a bigger hue and cry, more of an uproar around the community. I've gone to a couple of the meetings associated with the issue. And political figures say, hey, I wrote a letter back in 2014, to the EPA, as if somehow or other that's sufficient. I don't get that. As a practical matter, I think people ought to be turning over tables and pounding on tables in order to create a real rectification of this problem. I would tackle this in a very significant and aggressive way. Children are dying. There is a type of cancer of the appendix that affects 1 in a million people in America. There have been 60 cases of it in North St. Louis County. This is grossly unacceptable. And if you're looking for reasons to throw any incumbents out, if they haven't been active on this issue, I think that in and of itself should be sufficient reason to vote against them.
Well, again, only a couple of seconds left. What could county government do in 10 seconds, if you would, to rectify this? I
think you have to create a movement. All right, I don't think county government can necessarily do too much. Although there are some of those houses right nearby there that I think we could look at creating some movement of those individuals who are stuck there because their properties aren't for sale. And then I think you have to just align yourself with the population in order to create a movement.
We got to stop it there. Mark Mantovani, thank you so much for being with us. Good luck to you on Tuesday. Joe Manis, thank you so much for being with us. Steve Stenger will be with us tomorrow on this program. Archived versions of past St. Louis On the Air programs are available for download or podcast at stlpublicradio.org/STLOnAir. St. Louis On the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU. Thank you for listening. I'm Don Marsh.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.